Hi everyone, welcome to the next installment of the Spectrum Professional Development Lunch. Today we're going to be talking about how to develop a personal web page. And here to present is Dr. Ryan Pfeifle. He's an ex-GMU alum. The Nichols.
So today we're going to talk about developing a personal website, something that pretty much all students should do when they're in their undergrad or graduate degrees. This talk is going to be probably a little bit basic, but in the sense that we're not going to go in and we're not going to code up tons of HTML and JavaScript from scratch. Really, what I want to show are the resources that you can use to build a website efficiently and easily, and where to host those websites. Why build a website? Well, if you're a student and you're planning to go to graduate school committees will look up your name. They'll look to see if you've done work. So if you have that information easily accessible on a website that you can Google and find, search committees can easily find that information on you. And this is a big advantage because it shows off your the material you've done and sort of gives an extra spotlight in addition to your application materials. If you're a researcher, grad student or post-grad, other researchers will look for details about your work. I do it frequently, even for my colleagues. I look up on their website to see information that they've published before, because people put their papers up there, they put research projects or information on their research teams. So it's a nice way to figure out if people are seeking students or seeking collaboration. And of course, other students will also look for details on your work. And when I was a student, I was constantly looking up other grad and undergrad students to see where they were, what they're working on, who their advisors were. So again, it's a good way to connect with people that is not social media, and also allows you to have a web presence and show off your stuff to your peers. Now, I gave this talk 3 years ago, and so 3 years ago, this talk was about hosting your web page on the GMU servers because you're GMU students. However, this talk's gonna be a little bit different because I host my sites now on GitHub. I have actually found that to be a bit more user-friendly and a bit easier and nicer to use than the GMU servers. But the steps for the GMU servers are still here in the slide deck, and I'll keep that there for anyone who wants to use the GMU servers. But today we're going to walk through hosting your website on GitHub instead. Now, if you want to host on GMU servers, you'll follow the how to set up a personal site page on the GMU IT page, and you'll log in with your racing credentials, set up permissions for your website space, and then you'll create your files and upload them to the server. And of course, I have the steps here. These actually are steps you would put in the terminal if you were going to do it for the GMU server. However, like I said, we're going to talk about GitHub today instead. And that's for a number of reasons. So there's some benefits to hosting on GitHub as opposed to GMU servers. For example, GMU servers, I believe, still limits you to about 100 megabytes on the server under your username. GitHub has no such limitation. You can have gigabytes of data on your in your account under your repository. So if you want to upload data or pictures or whatever, make your website look nice, host research projects there, you can do that without a space limitation like that on the GMU server. You can track changes to your website over time with GitHub. GitHub is designed for tracking changes to code, and it can do the same thing for websites. So you can actually see how the website changes over time. You can wait to approve changes. So it's nice in that sense. It can be easier to upload big files. GitHub, you can not only drag and drop your files directly online, but if you wanted to work from the command line in a more code-like environment, you can also do that. So it's pretty flexible. And also, there are some folks that I know of who have left GMU, but still host their websites there. They have sometimes had their material removed from the servers. And if you're not prepared for that, it can happen, and then suddenly your website's gone and you start from scratch. So it's nice to have a third-party service like GitHub that's free that can host your website for you instead. Then there's no risk of that happening. We're going to follow the instructions laid out on this page, and I'm going to go through it with you. But if anyone's online, or if folks in person or on laptops and want to follow along, We can take pauses, work through stuff. But we're gonna follow the instructions here, which is just if you Google creating a GitHub Pages site, you can pull up the same link. And so let me just take a pause here and show you what this page looks like. So if you go to that link, the GitHub link, they actually have a very nice layout of how to start your website, how to make your repository, which is where we're going to host all of the code that our website uses. And what, the naming and everything, the permissions that you need, the licensing, it walks you through all this. So we're gonna walk through this today. Now, to give you an idea of what you can do with GitHub, I'm going to show you two websites, and I'll probably flash these again later. But there's two websites. This is a research page that I developed the last couple of years. It's still this is a research page for one of my research projects, for a catalog of work, and so there's a lot of stuff you can add here. There's tons of features. It's nice and professional looking. This is not my template. I used a free template. We're going to talk about that as well. And then my personal website. So there's a lot of functionality here, buttons that do nice things, and links that go to different places. You can go to the research page and you see, you give it a second, it will, oh, look, nice fade in. So it's very nice looking. So there's a lot of stuff we can do, especially when you use free templates online. So with that in mind, go back here. We're going to go ahead and set up the web page for GitHub. So if people want to follow along and you don't have a GitHub account, go ahead and make one now. Let me just take a pause and see, is anyone going to do this in the room? You're going to do it. So go ahead and go to GitHub and go ahead and make an account. And let me see if anybody online. Yes, absolutely. Slides, they can follow. And for the folks online, if you want to go ahead and do this as well, you can go ahead and go to GitHub and make an account. And we'll just kind of take a pause while people are doing that. And people just give me a signal when you're good to go. Because then we can, of course, you good, you got an account. Anyone else doing it in the room? Okay, you're doing it. Okay. Did you submit an account? Okay. Anyone online? I think you have one person online. If you're following along and you want to do this live, let us know, or if you're just going to watch and do it later, also let us know so that I know whether to proceed. Okay. So maybe we should wait for. Okay. So assuming you've made your account, so this is a screenshot of once you've logged in. This is probably what you're going to see on your home screen. And I can even show you on my account. So if I go to my account, you're going to have these menu buttons up here. You're going to click Create New. You're going to click New Repository. Okay. You're going to click New Repository. And this window is going to pop up. And so you're going to need a repository name. I forget what I call mine.
Something your username .github.
Yeah.
IO.
Is there a name you recommend?
.github.io.
Let me look.
I think it has to be a specific.
Yeah, it's not that one.
Supposed to be memorable.
I think it's actually my username is what I used. Yeah, I think that's what I used. Should double check that option.
Do you recommend that students just starting out use their real name so that people can easier find them?
Yeah, that's a good way to do this, is use your real name. You can also later on, you can make a custom domain name if you don't use your name. I know that's a possibility. I haven't done that. Yeah, so I must have named my repository my username. So that's what I put in there. But under your name, you can use whatever you want. So under my test website that I made yesterday to make sure this all worked, as a website, but you can put your name or your account name or whatever. You can add a description if you want, personal website or whatever this is going to be. You'll want to set this to be public. It should automatically be public, but just make sure it's public. You'll want to toggle on add README. That's going to make a README file that is not going to be relevant for the website, but it does initialize your repository. I clicked no license, but you can add a license later. So if you're using your own template or you're using somebody else's template, you want to add a license, a common Creative Commons license or something, you can do that later. And so once you've filled that information in, and has everybody done that, you're okay. So go ahead and click create repository. So that should create the repository, and that is going to look. This menu, except you're not going to have all this stuff down here, not yet, but you're going to have a window that looks like this. We want to now make sure this is publishing when we make changes. We want to make this public, public changes, make sure they get pushed to your website. So to do that, we're going to go to the settings button, top right. And we're going to then on the left menu, click pages. And you're going to make sure that under build and deployment here, it says deploy from a branch. And that branch, I make it main. You can make it any other branch there. But I make it the main branch. With GitHub, the idea is you have a flow for your code. You can have a variety of branches that you work on. So the main branch should be the one that your final product is on, or your most current version is on. But it could be any other branch. But I would just keep it main for now. If you're unfamiliar with GitHub, you can learn more about that later. So make sure this says main, and then click the save button. If everyone's there. So now we need a landing page. So the easiest way to do this is to open a text editor and type anything you want and save that as index.html. Now I'm going to try to do this on Windows machine. Notepad. I'm going to save this. Now on Macs, you could use Text Wrangler or VS Code. On Windows, you could use VS Code and Notepad. I'm going to save this as all files. Sorry, I'm a Mac user, so it's sometimes difficult to come back to the inputs. I'm going to save that as an HTML file.
Any text editor.
Any text editor is fine. Yeah. That's files. I save it to the desktop just so I know where to find it. And these tabs. So the nice thing. Where's my file? Do you see it here?
Index is on the right.
Ah, here it is. So when you make an HTML file, you can actually check to see what it looks like locally before you push it online. So if I just double click this, it will open in a browser and show you what you just put in your HTML file. So this is a nice way to check your formatting before you push things out to GitHub. So that's what I just typed. I put hello world, save this file, and that's that. That's the easiest way to do this. And then once you have that, you can go to your GitHub repository. And there will be a button called add file here. Click that, you click upload files. And it'll take you to where you can drag and drop your files. Now again, this is, if you're not using Terminal to do all this, if you want to use Terminal, it's different than this. That's more complicated, we're not going to talk about that today. But just the easiest thing to do is to drag and drop your files here in your repository. And then it'll ask you to add an option of a description. You can do that or you don't have to. And then you'll want to commit your changes down. So once you do that, that new file will be pushed up to your account, and that will be your landing page. So that's your initial page. Anyone that goes to your website address, that is what they will see first, is that index.html. But obviously, that looks pretty plain. And HTML, there's a lot you have to learn for HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So instead of coding this up all ourselves, we're going to use free templates that are available online that when I was a student, I didn't know about until another colleague of mine showed me, which are these wonderful free templates from HTML5. These are fully coded up, scalable templates that are free to use. And they work on mobile devices, laptops, tablets, and that is how I created my web pages. So I downloaded these templates and populated those files with my own information. And so I'll show you how to do that. So for those who are building their website, you can scroll through and find one you like, but I'm going to show you the one I'm going to choose, which is Prologue. So I'm going to use Prologue just for the demo. And I'll just show you the live demo of this as well. So this website.
Can you scroll back up to the top?
Yes. So that is the website. We should stop. So what this website is going to look like is once we get in there, there's all this information and different portions that is filled with just jumbled stuff. This is all just fake Latin. But it's there as a placeholder for you to then populate. So there's all sorts of things that we could go and do. So for those following along, download any template you want, but this is the one we're going to download, that I'm going to download. And so really what this is going to do, we're going to open this up and take a look and see how we actually populate this. Because HTML, it reads a bit like English, but it can be a little hard to see if you're not familiar with it. So, and for those following the slides, these are the GMU steps. So here's where we are in the steps. We've got HTML5 up, we've got our formats. We're downloading our templates. We're going to go into the downloaded folder. So for those who are actively doing this, give me a thumbs up if you have you downloaded a template or this one. It's fine. So once you download one, we can do the same thing. You double click the index file. It will. That's weird. It should show you the nicely formatted version that you just saw online. Of course, I did this on a Mac, and I don't know if it's different on Windows nowadays. But it should have pulled up with all the nice JavaScript and CSS. I'm not sure why it did. But that's fine, because that doesn't stop us from still understanding things that we can change here. So we are going to open this, instead of just double clicking it and opening it in the browser, we're going to open this with or on the Mac, you can use VS Code or anything else. Sorry, this was much smoother when I did this on Zoom 3 years ago.
So if it helps on my Mac, I can see.
That good. I'm glad. As I fight this Windows machine, this is that. Now this want to. There we go. Okay, it was a compression. So now locally, we can make changes and see them in real time as we make those changes. So we're going to go into our folder, and we're going to open the index file in any text editor you want. Here I'm using Notepad, but if you're on a Mac, VS Code or Vim or
So this is the version on your local computer.
Yes, sir. This is the local version.
So after you edited, you uploaded.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're gonna make some changes here. So and then we'll upload this new version. So easiest thing to do is look for obvious words that you can look for. So Jane Doe, you want to replace that with your name. So let's look for Jane Doe. Where's Jane Doe? So this is the area that corresponds to this area in your HTML file or your website. So that's where we're going to want to update. And that's what we're going to do as we go through these HTML files. Is we're literally going to look to see where that pre-populated information is, and then we can fill in our information. Now, it's very basic at the beginning like that. You just fill in the pre-populated areas. But as you become more familiar with HTML, CSS, and these templates themselves, you can then start adding your own sections or own content. So I've used these, for example, and I've gone in and added additional columns or picture areas or whatever you wanted, embedded files like videos or maps. And so if we go in and change this, I'm going to change this to my name. And I'm not a hyperspace engineer. Charmer. Shocking, can spell that correctly. So I'm going to save that file. And then I'm just going to go, this is the local file again that I double clicked earlier. If you just refresh it, immediately updates. So you can then double check everything you've added to the file immediately before you worry about pushing anything online. So you can design your whole web page using these templates locally. And then once it's all done, if you wanted to, once it's all done, drag and drop it online, GitHub, and then your website's live and perfect and whatever you want it to be. And so the same thing applies for the rest of these sections. So your this intro and so the hi, I'm prologue is down here in the header section. So HTML is, I don't know if anyone's familiar with HTML, but it's separated into these different containers. So that's what you're seeing. You're seeing labels and containers here. That's where this information is separated into. So as you go through, they'll be divided into containers. So this is a separate container from this one. It has different attributes. So for example, they're using strong here to make it more of a bold font in the text. As you become more familiar with HTML, this will become kind of second nature. And you can Google HTML tips or tricks and learn these kinds of things. So that's the basis here. Once you have your files set up, you will then just go back to your website and you'll do the exact same thing we did before. You'll drag and drop your files right there. And it will, these templates have a variety of CSS, JavaScript, and other files, HTML files, that make all that functionality work. It will drop all of those files in here for you. You just click commit changes at the bottom. It will upload them all online, and then your website should automatically be pushed to your main repository. It'll be live. And the same goes for if you want to change anything in those files, or you want to add another website page and link it to your main page. You just drag and drop, and it'll push to your account.
How are the links?
So the links are updated because as you upload files here, they will cite. Hey, whoa.
Just drag that thing to the bottom or hide it. You can do more, you can also hide it. Drag it to the bottom.
So as you add web pages, so if I click home on mine, so this is my index.html. On the prologue format that I'm showing, there's only a single page for this one, and it scrolls down through everything. My page is not the same way. It scrolls, but I have separate pages. And as you add more pages, those come up under whatever you name those HTML files. It's what that web page would be called under your account. And then in your HTML files, you will add the links to these buttons. As you look through, like this template has buttons, you can go through and see where those links are supposed to be. In fact, I can show you in the HTML file of my website. Here, show you my HTML file, index.html. So those buttons are under what this person, the guy who's created this, there's a navigation container, and that's where these buttons are, and that's where you would add your hyperreference for your additional page. So if you had buttons on your website at the top or on the side, you go into your HTML and add that HTML file for your additional web page. And then that would be linked. So when you push all the changes online, that button would then be active and you can click it and go to the other page. I think in these templates, when you first download them, all these buttons are these. Yeah, I didn't know that. Fancy. These buttons on a lot of these templates are, they don't have links, so if you try to click on them, they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But you can go and populate those what are called href links, and then it will suddenly start working for you. And you can test this on your local copy as well. So your local copy, if you save your HTML file, that's a point I should make. When you add a page, you'll want to have it next to your index file. So wherever you save it, make sure it's saved in the same location. That's great.
So each button is like a directory.
Kind of, it's like a directory.
Files into it.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a directory. And so you'll have to link your files together.
So when you click on the button, you'll see a list of files.
Kind of, yeah. So so for example, in this, I have some of these are just buttons, so they take you to a specific page. But others, I have a drop-down menu, and then it's sort of like a directory where you have to link the files together, and some of these are nested directories, and then those final links take you to the specific file.
Is that code that provided?
No, a lot of that, some of it could be that you have to write, but a lot of that is actually built into these templates. So for example, this drop-down menu, I saw it in a different template, liked it, and I added it to my HTML file. And it worked out of the box. Yeah, a lot of it works very copy and paste, or it's designed. Sometimes there's mock code written in these templates.
Yeah.
Where they're not using the code in the template, but you can uncomment it and add it in. And so that's what I've done in a lot of cases is maybe one of these buttons will have a drop-down menu option like this. And then I went through and said, well, I'd love to have a button that had a drop-down menu and then another button in there that was another drop-down menu. And so you just make a nested code, and, so it takes some playing around, but it becomes more straightforward when we work with it. Once you become very familiar with these templates, you can kind of hack them together. So for example, in my personal webpage, you saw this background fade into view. That is not native to the template I'm using. That I took from another template, searched through their CSS file that controlled that fade in, fade out, and added it to my template. It took a little bit of hacking, but I figured out how to get it to work. But you can go through your files and change the colors and the line thicknesses and do all sorts of stuff. And I'll show you actually. We go to here. So under your asset folders, this is where your CSS and your JavaScript and web fonts, all that stuff that runs behind the scenes, helps run the HTML behind the scenes, sits. And so your main CSS, I'm going to open this just to show you what it looks like. Visual Studio Code, that's what I think. So this looks a lot different from HTML, but this controls all of the, I guess, details or the attributes of the web page. So if you wanted to change background colors or text colors, your border size, the CSS code is where you want to go and start looking at that. So, and for example, so like body, this is going to change a lot of the, this will change a lot of the font size and family and weight and color. So if you want to start changing your color palettes for your websites, that's where you go, is the CSS file. And you can literally just go through, read through, change something, save it, hit refresh on your local copy and see what it changed. And that's literally how I learned a lot of this CSS and what needs to be changed is I would go through and just trial and error it to see what these files are doing, what attributes I need to be changing to get the result that I want. Which is kind of, it's not necessarily an amazing technique from a computer science standpoint, but for someone who didn't know what he was doing at the very start, that's the best thing I could do. And you end up learning a lot. And that's how I learned how to piece together different CSS files and make them work, is that I, over time, learned how to put things together in an intelligent fashion. Whereas before, it was like I was sitting things with a hand. But then again, once you have completed these files or whatever changes you want to make, you can go back and upload them. Now, let me see if I can get this to change. So that just changed the color of the body. So if you're in VS Code actually shows you the actual color, which is very nice. It's very nice. I love, this is why I love VS Code.
So you can pick random numbers and.
Yeah, you can pick random numbers, or you can Google on specific text code or whatever, you know. So I just picked random color, but actually that's very close to one of my favorite colors, so that looks wonderful. So I'm gonna save that. I want to go back and see if that changed anything.
It's dangerous, I like it. A little edge.
Change it. Yeah, there we go. So I just changed the body text one. So, yeah, so there's a lot of functionality here that it would take me 3 hours to go through and show you everything. So that's why I'm kind of showing you just tiny little things that you can go through and start playing around with. If you want to add photos, like this template has photos, you'll, again, like we did before, you'll go through and search where some of these names are. And those photos will show up. So if I copy that, go back to, I just have to put that there. So that was in a header, but you see they have classes that are images, and that's where they've stored this. So they have a folder called images, which is here in the main area. And you'll go through and you can add your own pictures, your own JPEGs, and just change the link there. And it should immediately show up on your template. And again, it will compile locally before you push anything out. Or if you push things and you say, I don't like that photo anymore, change it locally, push it back up, and it will adjust automatically.
So you said, when is this 3-hour webinar that you plan
That is unfortunately not bad. But you know, this gives you a taste for all the different things you can change and play around with the templates. And there are tons, I think there are like 50 templates that you can choose from.
So, you store them locally, but they will show up, like, you don't need to upload them with the index files in the.
You'll want to upload the entire thing. Yeah. Yes, that was confusing. So anything you want on your website has to be in the online repository where you're going to store the website. So your HTML files, the CSS files that are here locally that you're playing around with, your images, anything you want there, you'll have to upload. The only thing that you wouldn't is, let's say, we showed you. So on my research page, I have pictures; those are uploaded. But this is a YouTube video that I embedded, and this used to be a GMU radio podcast that was embedded. That they moved somewhere. But these are embedded videos, so I don't have those locally, and they're not in my repository on my website. They're just linked in my HTML code. So that's the only stuff you don't know. But yeah, pretty much everything else you can download these templates and play around with.
I think hide floating meeting controls.
Okay, well, like I said, there's like 50 templates or more here. If you want access to even more templates, you can pay $20, and the guy will give you access to tons more templates, and he'll even help you with them. I don't do that, but I do leave the license. I think I have the license still for his code in my repository. I still leave the attribute at the bottom of my repository so that he gets credit for it. But there's tons and tons of these with all different varieties, single page websites, multi-page websites. You know, so I would encourage you to look through, play with the demos that let you click buttons and see where things go. Figure out which one you like most, download it, play around with it, make it your own, and then upload to your GitHub account, to your repository. And again, if you get stuck, I mean, we have the slides here, which we've kind of been jumping around. In fact, I kind of walked you through all these steps, which was double clicking things, opening templates, editing the files. And this is, we walked through uploading the files. So the slides are here for those who want it. And then also, of course, there's still also the GitHub instructions online. They have very nice documentation that walks you through everything I already showed you. Yeah, that's about it. You know, there's nothing really super technical about this presentation. It's kind of just giving you the resources and showing you what you can do without having to spend hours and hours and hours learning the code and writing it yourself. Not when there's free resources out there that you can pick up and play with. But I can help folks if they want help now with anything or questions. Yeah.
Since we have some extra time, could you walk us through how to maybe make a small change and then push that small change so that it updates?
Yeah. So for that, let me.
And for small changes, could you just edit it on GitHub directly? Feasible,
Yeah, I actually think you
does that make sense?
Yeah, so
Maybe it
on,
doesn't make sense.
so online, you can actually click edit this file and you can go in and you can change the HTML right there. And then I think there's probably for commit changes. So if you don't want to bother with it locally, once you've uploaded it, you can make those changes online and then just commit your changes online.
Well, locally, you wouldn't see how it works.
That's true. So
You don't have a complete mirror.
Yes, exactly. So if you're doing this online, you run the risk of maybe jumbling up your website without realizing it.
Oh,
You
yeah.
commit changes and then it's all messed up. You gotta go back.
But at least you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, this is kind of, it's another layer of versatility. You can also work on it online, but there's the danger that you might mess things up. Let's, what's an example of what you'd like to see? Because I want to know if I should change things in my personal website or if I should open my temporary account and.
So maybe for some people that aren't very well versed in GitHub, the different folders being pushed. So let's maybe make a change to an image.
Sure. So if we wanted to do that, let's go down. Immediately. Wow.
Easy puppies.
Tough crap. So we're gonna download this image. Wait. That's it. Okay. So we're gonna take this and put it in our HTML prologue folder or whatever folder you have. And we're gonna also then move it to the images. You don't have to, but it's just nice to have things organized. So we'll put it in the images folder. So now we see these are the mock images that came with the template, and now we have our NASA John Burroughs Hospital. So I'm gonna open up the index file, which I already did. We're gonna add that image to this one here. So I'm gonna open this with VS Code. So I like that. And we're gonna work some. So this is where we want to change that name. Or slide. So. Images. And then, oops, that's not. Okay, multiple folders of this name. Okay. There we go. So copy the name. JPEG. Save that. And when we open this back up again, it should automatically add here. So once you've done that and you've updated this on your local copy, you're going to then go to your GitHub. And you're going to click upload files. And you will drag whatever files you changed, you want to drag there. So you changed your index file, so you'll drag that there. And your images folder, you added an image to that. But GitHub won't really know where to add your files if you go in here and then drag and drop. So I would recommend just taking the whole images folder and dropping it right in. It'll overwrite your old ones with the same images you already had, but it will also add the new image. That's the way I would do it, if you're doing it here. On a computer, it's a little bit easier to do this with your nested folders because you're pushing the directory paths as well. Here, you're not doing it. So if you're just using the online feature, which is the easiest way to do it, just drag your whole images folder, or let's say you change some CSS files, but you're not sure if you're not sure what you changed, if you're not sure which files you changed, you can literally drag and drop everything, and it will overwrite. You'll add your changes and overwrite things with the same file you did change.
You can go a step backwards and just drag and drop the whole prologue template folder that has the 5 nested folders.
You could, but then the only problem with that is then I think the file name is going to show up in your name, which is not in their index file. So the index file is on. So if we look on the code in the repository, the index file is in the main area of the repo. You can set it up so that it looks for your index file in a nested area, but you have to tell it directly where it is. So if you don't want to worry about all that, just leave your HTML files in the main area and don't nest. So I would just, the easiest thing to do is just copy and paste all of your folders and files into that upload area.
We also have a question from the chat. Is the page automatically online when we upload to GitHub?
As soon as you click commit changes at the bottom, so upload files. As soon as you click commit changes, because earlier we made our publishing, we said publish when we push to main. Since here we are committing these changes to main, as soon as you click commit changes, it should be live. Granted, with GitHub pages, sometimes there's a 10 to 15 minute delay, so you may not see those changes reflected immediately, but within 30 minutes, they should be live, and that will be what your website looks like. Yeah.
How could it not be live?
Well,
What would
exactly.
it be showing?
Yeah, so that's only if you've changed the way that it publishes. So go back to settings. So here we set it up so we're deploying from our main branch. But if for some reason you're in a different branch, let's say you have a testing branch, instead of main, you're in testing, and you want to store stuff there before you port it over to your main area. If you were to push to your testing area, it wouldn't be live because your main area is live. Of course, you can also tell it, I want a different, if you click none, I don't think it would push your changes at all. So regardless of where you put your data. That's why we put main there for a branch. But yes, to the original question, as soon as you click commit, as long as your deployment permissions are the same as here, it should automatically be uploaded and good to go online.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you said, in terms of hosting the GMU, sometimes it can go away. What is the insurance behind GitHub?
The insurance behind GitHub is that it is used worldwide by, I don't know, tens of thousands of not just astronomers, but computer scientists and industry experts and stuff like that. So there are companies that have not all of the code, but there are companies that store code on GitHub. So it's secure enough that you should never be worried about it going away. Private companies, so yeah, it's their space and whatnot, but it's kind of similar to like, you wouldn't expect your Google Drive area to suddenly just disappear. That's a service that they pretty much guaranteed for every Google account. It would be unusual for that to suddenly disappear.
Who owns?
Yeah,
what's the dynamic
behind that?
Microsoft.
Do they own GitHub? Yeah. Microsoft.
Yeah.
Microsoft does. Well, actually, yeah, because Copilot, that makes sense. Because Copilot is VS Code. Yeah. So as long as you're okay with Microsoft storing your files, Microsoft is one of the companies I typically trust, but you know, to each their own. I'm not gonna judge. You know, yeah. So that would be my recommendation is GitHub, but GMU is a perfectly good option if you want to do GMU. It's just that GMU, you have to push everything through the terminal. You have to be logged in through the VPN, and all that. I found sometimes GMU to be a little clunky and annoying to deal with, but that's just my.
There's no other questions from the chat, but any other questions in the room?
So I am definitely not a computer whiz. I'm in forensic science. I'm just interested in building a website for my own personal use. And from what I know so far is that you have to have something called a domain.
GitHub. I think you
That's,
walked in a
that's
bit late.
GitHub. Okay.
Yeah,
yes.
so, yeah, that was one of the first things we did was,
Okay.
yeah, no, totally fine, it's totally fine.
You that will upload and make sure we have your email address. And
Excellent.
Make sure you have it.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and in the slides here, so when you go to make your repository, which is where you're gonna store your files.
Yep.
That it will actually ask you the repository name, and this will become part of the domain name. And if you want a custom domain name later on, you can add that. So you could change the naming of the website. But when you make it on GitHub, it automatically gives you a GitHub page's domain name. And then that's where you can point people to for your website. So,
Free 99?
And before that, you need a GitHub account.
yes, you do need a GitHub account, but it's free. I've been on GitHub for years and I've never had to pay a cent. So I have big CSV files and data files in my account. I think they give something like 10 gigs or something, or maybe it's 10 gigs of, I don't know what the size of it is.
It's even more than that.
It might,
It's a lot.
it might even be 100 gigs,
Yeah.
but it's just, you can only upload certain amounts at a time for the free version. I got in trouble with that one time. But yeah, you can store tons of information on your site. So again, if you wanted to store your research projects, you could. Just know that there's a company that's storing your stuff for you. So if there's data rights, like some people can't store data in Dropbox because you don't know where it's being stored globally. That's another thing that if it's proprietary, maybe don't put it, you know. But for non-proprietary stuff or just research stuff that doesn't matter where it's stored, that's okay. So hopefully this was helpful. So like I said, it's a little bit basic. I'm kind of walking you through, make an account and upload files, but this is stuff I didn't know when I first started off. I certainly didn't know about the templates. I starting off built an HTML website from scratch. So and it wasn't very pretty, but it worked. And then I replaced it with this beautiful template. So yeah.
There's no other questions?
I do have one question. So, I'm the president of my alumni association for my high school, right? And they have a website, but it's a lot of older women, not really techie geniuses, right? So they are saying that they lost access to editing the website. Can't find the person that made the website. But when you right click on the website, you are able to see pretty much like inspect the website and see like the coding and stuff, right? But we can't make any edits. The only way to do so is to find this person.
Do you
You should be able to like from that inspect page, I think you could download files.
But we would have to create a whole nother website, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how it's hosted.
Maybe they didn't pay the monthly blue.
So we're paying the domain, we're still paying for the domain. So that's how I even know what the domain is.
Locked out.
Right, but we have no way to actually, edit it.
Could they download the HTML file and upload to GitHub?
They could, but then if they want the same domain name, they'll have to relinquish the domain name on the current version, and then they would have to then get it again and change it on GitHub.
I see.
Yeah,
But it is possible.
but yeah, totally possible. Yeah, totally possible. It would just have to, you'd have to change where. it is. So,
So I was actually gonna suggest the inspect too, I don't know if I did that.
no, that,
It's actually very helpful, so if you go to like your webpage. Whatever. And like, I don't know, say it's the one of the buttons or something, you right click on it. And just hit inspect.
oh,
And then we see all of that come up, right?
Yeah. So if you go to like sources. That should be like your file should be in there somewhere. Like the files of your webpage, like HTML or CSS, should be somewhere in sources.
And then you download
Then
them.
you can download them.
Just upload it to an email.
I
And then
just
you
wonder,
can
like,
see you get it working on
But
GitHub.
I also, if you go
And
back to the
then do the
elements,
big
I just wanna
switch.
show for like a sense of. You can see what element is what, and then you can also, I think it's either like computed or layout or something, you can see like the CSS.
oh, that's nice.
So that way it's a lot easier than having to learn like CSS.
Yes.
You can just be like, oh, why is it, this color, or why is it like whatever, you can actually see, or like the class name. So like some has the class, it'll tell you what the class is and all of that kind of stuff.
That's nice, I didn't know.
Right,
it.
right.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
knew it would pull this stuff up, but I didn't realize it actually.
Yeah.
And I think, I
Okay.
believe you can actually in place edit the CSS on it.
Thank you so much.
And if you wanted to like play with it, easily,
Better.
instead of having to like
But it's the domain.
go to your editor and all that.
Yeah,
We would have to change.
Just something else that's
Yeah,
helpful.
unless you
I think it does the
want
color
somebody
thing
to
as well,
say,
like the VS Code stuff. There.
And then you can just start.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
yeah, so that's definitely everything.
Oh my goodness, you
Using
guys are dragging me up into the IT side.
You can do all this with close WordPress. Or, because then you don't need to like do it all your manual.
Yeah.
So I have an account.
Because WordPress is its own website hosting
I think
area,
it's
and they've got
similar
their
to-
templates and stuff, so it's gonna be different than this, this is much more manual work. So WordPress is easier in that sense, it's like Squarespace, where it's gonna be easier.
Use that GitHub.
Yeah.
So, they're pretty much set. I don't know if you could take the templates from WordPress, I'm not quite sure how they host them. Or
If you can paste it, if you can do the manual work, I just wanted to know if you do all that drag and drop easy for with your, but in your.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be the drag and drop stuff from WordPress, it won't be the same here, yeah, unfortunately.
WordPress, you pay for that?
I think WordPress has to,
There's a free version of it.
Yeah.
This is very helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
So there's no other. I was just going, because we're still recording, so if there's no other questions, obviously people can still talk to the speaker after we shut off, but maybe let's just thank our speaker now. And for people online, we're going to publish the slides and also the recording will be on YouTube. Everybody here also, if we don't have your email already, just give that to us and we'll give you all those resources.
Okay.
And I'll end the recording now.
Where would we look on YouTube?